What book would you recommend to people who haven't finished a book since high school? I recently picked up reading as a quarantine hobby after not reading a book for fun since probably middle school. I realized quickly that the reason I always thought I hated reading was because other people were telling me what to read, and it was usually subjects that didn't interest me at all. I thought about which non-book things I enjoy reading and realized I have an easy time getting completely engrossed in Wikipedia articles, AskReddit threads and blog posts about unresolved mysteries, paranormal events, survival and nature stories. So I bought a few books that fit into those common themes and it's been great. This probably isn't a lot for some people, but since March I've finished 5 books, up from 0 for the 10-15 years prior. I think if you think about it like this, you'll have a much easier time finding a book for yourself by just looking up bestsellers in the categories that you decide interest you. In case you're also interested in my themes, I've read and loved Into the Wild Dead Mountain, The Untold True Story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident 438 Days, An Extraordinary True Story of Survival at Sea, The Road Between a Rock and a Hard Place. Hope this is helpful to somebody. The road is so heavy, it stayed with me longer than anything else I've read. Jurassic Park. I know reading books after seeing the movies can sometimes be dull, but the book is way darker than the movie. Muldoon driving around drunk as F on whiskey, swearing like a sailor, and blowing up dinos with a rocket launcher, for example. This is one case where I couldn't actually tell you which was better, movie or book, but it was also a case of where they changed so much and it still works for both. I won't spoil it, but different characters live in the book that die in the movie and vice versa, and a few characters have radically different personalities. But I would still highly recommend both reading the book and watching the movie. Yeah, it's really hard to compare them. It's basically 2 different stories, or the best way I can put it, an alternate reality. Edit. Should have mentioned the second book is equally interesting, and very similarly like an alternate reality. Would recommend any Michael Crichton book. You know they are good when almost all of them have been made into blockbuster movies. Any book by John Ronson. He's a journalist who dives into cults, psychopaths, politics and other interesting stuff. Really accessible writing style. World War Z. Lots of short stories that tie into the greater story. I illegally downloaded it when I was really poor and liked it so much I brought it out of appreciation. Edit. Greater. Second edit. Not correcting spelling. Whatever, I do what I want. Also, it's important to note the book is very different from the movie. Liked the movie. Loved the book. The only similarities between the book and movie is the name and zombies. The Princess Bride. It's a delightful read. It's easy, and everyone I know that has read it has absolutely loved it. I've recommended it to several friends, including like 8 people in a work book club, and again, 100 across the board. Edit. I love that so many people agree. Thanks for the awards. It's a wonderful book and a wonderful movie. Is this a kissing book? Well, when does it get good? Keep your shirt on. Hop on Pop. I'm halfway done after 8 months and it's so good. The Color of Magic. Discworld has got me back into reading again. Yes, welcome back. Mort is an amazing start as well. Mort or Wid Sisters. Either is the perfect start for someone who has read and enjoyed Harry Potter. Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I hadn't read a book purely for pleasure in years. This August, I saw it on a bookshelf at my parents' home. Once I started, I couldn't put it down. Literally, I opened that book at 10 AM. Finished it at 8 PM the same day. Please go read it. Edit. Oh my gosh. Exclamation mark. I can't believe how much traction this comment got. Thank you all for the awards, upvotes, and replies. It's wonderfully magical to see the power that books have in connecting and inspiring us. Close bracket. Diana Wynne Jones' entire catalog is really quite excellent, but Howl's Moving Castle has always been my favorite. It's just constantly imaginative, clever, funny, and whimsical, and the cast is great and fairly unique. If I ever find myself in a reading lull, this is almost always the book I choose to get me out of it. As a bonus, There is an excellent Studio Ghibli adaptation that diverges heavily from the novel, but still retains much of the setting and characters. It almost plays out like a what-if scenario, and it's one of my favorite book-to-movie adaptations. Definitely worth the read and watch. I saw the Studio Ghibli adaptation of Howl's Moving Castle ages ago. I was so surprised at how different the movie and novel are from each other. After reading the novel though, I prefer the book over the movie, mostly because of how lovely the depth, complexity, and interactions of the characters in the novel are. Now, I know that there's a limit in how much material you can fit into a movie from a book, but I really wish the characters could have been given more depth. That said, Studio Ghibli has such amazing production quality. Their interpretation of Howl's Moving Castle is still wonderful on its own. All in all, I see the main difference between the two is that the novel primarily focuses on the characters and their interactions, while the movie really seeks to immerse the viewer in the world of Howl's Moving Castle. However, both definitely did a fantastic job in their own right. Small Gods by Terry Pratchett. It hits a sweet spot of humor and serious topics, and is a relatively quick read that sticks with you. Just a great book to get started on both Discworld and a new reading habit. I love the Pratchett recommendations in here. He was truly my bridge between young and adult fiction. Small Gods is a standalone gem, often forgotten by fans, but a great representation of his growing fantasy style. The Martian. The book had me laughing out loud. My son did not know how a book about a man alone struggling for survival on Mars could be funny, but it is. Old Man's War by John Scalzi. Great interesting take on war in space/future. Netflix is making it into a movie too. Good Omens. It's short and funny. Interview with the Vampire Star Wars, Heir to the Empire. There's some contributions to the Star Wars saga, starting with Heir to the Empire, are a great gateway into both Star Wars EU, if you're a Star Wars fan, and also Zan, if you're into sci-fi in general. His Conqueror trilogy is great. The Icarus hunt is very well put together, if a bit cheesy in places. I felt Angelmus was a bit too much work for its concept, but still worth a read. John dies at the end. The first chapter is hilarious and makes it clear that books aren't just the boring old things you read in school. Kitchen Confidential. Anthony Bourdain was an amazing storyteller. It is a short autobiography of his early years in the underbelly of American culinary scene. A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. It's a hilarious book about his failed attempt of hiking the Appalachian Trail. You learn a bunch and enjoy the read along the way. Terry Pratchett Reaperman. Fantastic book. Really, I would recommend new readers read a list of every Discworld novel and pick the one they vibe with. Steelhead by Brandon Sanderson. Premise: what if superheroes were the bad guys? It's CW/O being shallow. First chapter that hooks you, long enough to take a while but not intimidating. I'd recommend Mistborn by Sanderson if you want fantasy instead of superheroes. Mistborn is great. It does seem to divide people a bit though. That ending is a doozy. The Giver by Lois Lowry. It is my all-time favorite. It isn't very long, but the story is amazing, and was one of the first special teen changes utopian/dystopia society by being special. It's absolutely amazing. I agree, love this book. We read it way before high school though, in GR 5 or 6 if I recall. It's very approachable and could ignite interest in other books of the same dystopian type genre. The original Millennium Trilogy books by Stieg Larsson, especially the first book, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It's definitely more grown up than high school material. It's at its core a great thriller/mystery novel which is rewarding, but not difficult to read. The characters are very memorable, the story is well crafted, and the themes are very relevant both then and now. I'll add a caveat that the depictions of sexual violence and abuse in the book might be triggering for some, so people may want to consider that before starting. I reread the trilogy every year, but I do skip the most graphic parts in the first book. I have no history of trauma, but it is truly horrifying. Ender's Game. I think it provides an excellent adventure, all the while giving you a most interesting perspective. Great book. Rubbish, because it's extremely rushed. Movie. Old Man's War by /U/Scalzi. You're welcome, John. Enjoy yet another 10 cents from me. The Martian by Andy Weir. Stephen King is pretty easy to read. Quite engaging. Pick any book and start. Harry Potter if you've somehow managed to not read them yet. They're fun even if you're an adult. Edit. How the hell could I forget Good Omens? Edit 2. Look how popular this comment is. John, I think I must've made you a whopping $5. Enjoy that Starbucks. I read Silence of the Lambs twice before it came out on film. I highly recommend it. The Book Thief. It is such a fantastic read. The story and storytelling are masterful. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. 100% funny as hell. Short chapters. And while the vocabulary isn't difficult, the humor requires careful reading and sometimes rereading.